Good day, everyone, and welcome to episode number 35 of Unsung Heroes of the Cloud, where today we are joined by Nicole Serafino, who will show us how you can get some hands on experience with the Azure OpenAI service using the OpenAI workshop. Nicole, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Happy to be here today. How are you doing?
I am doing well, and fun story for people watching. We are sort of part of the same team, but in different ends of the country. So, Nicole, before we jump into the OpenAI workshop, what do you like to do for fun?
Sure. Yeah. In my free time, I like to golf, take my dogs for walks, and running.
Okay. Are you playing any sort of competitive golf, or is this just for your free time?
A little bit of both. Usually, even my competitions are more of like the fun competitions, I would say, though. So it's mainly just a fun hobby.
Okay. But you still like to compete.
I do.
Okay. I totally don't know nothing about golf, but I think the question people always ask is, what is your handicap?
Yes. I play around an eight.
Okay. I have no clue what that means. Is that good?
It means I usually score around, like, my peaks are eight over par.
Okay. And that's on 9 or 18 holes?
18.
Okay, so that means that you like are on par for more than half of the course.
Just about.
Yeah, well, you see, that's the extent of my golfing knowledge. But you also said you run. Are you training for anything special?
I do. Actually, I'm training for the Chicago Marathon for this October.
Okay, and you're already training now. How's your training going?
So I'm more so just focusing on building a stronger base for right now, and then I'll start kind of real marathon training come May.
Okay. If I may ask, because I know some people don't like to share their targets, but do you have a target time for yourself?
Not really, honestly. So I ran competitively in college. So I feel like any time I would set for myself would be based off of my college running times. So my goal for the Chicago Marathon is just to have fun, but I think around 4 hours, maybe a little bit less, is going to be pretty reasonable for me.
No. Okay. Is this your first marathon?
Yep, this will be my first full marathon. I've run a couple halves, and in college, I ran the 5K and the 10K on the track, and then cross country is a 6K for women. So this will be my first, full marathon.
Well, and before you know it, you'll be running ultra marathons.
I wouldn't go that far yet. We'll see.
So let's get to the actual topic today, and why people might actually be joining is the OpenAI workshop. What's maybe before we jump into the OpenAI workshop, for those of the audience that are tuning in that don't really understand the relationship between OpenAI and Microsoft, would you mind explaining what that's about?
Yeah, sure. So Microsoft's partnered with OpenAI, which is an AI research company, in order to provide compute for them, as well as provide resources in order to further develop these AI models and provide this service now that runs on top of Azure. So there is like just the Azure, there's the OpenAI service, and then what we offer here at Microsoft is the Azure OpenAI service. So this is running all those same OpenAI models just on top of the Azure platform so that you get the enterprise grade security and all the features that come along, with using Azure for this.
Okay, and then what is the OpenAI workshop all about?
So the OpenAI workshop is just for in order to kind of get started and seeing how you can integrate the OpenAI Azure service along with other products as well to kind of create a full solution. So with OpenAI, you can just log into your Azure portal and access like what's called the playground, which is kind of just a studio that gives you a little text box where you can, ask questions and play around in there. But then as far as integrating this into products, that's where kind of our workshop comes in and just gives a starting point for, how this can fit into different architectures and how you can use the APIs that are available and just kind of getting started with that.
Okay, and where can people find the workshop?
Sure. So we have this on a public GitHub repo. So we have all the instructions and everything are within that. So anybody can go ahead and get started in that there as well.
Okay. And then as people walk through this workshop, is this something they would you oh, Sorry, I'm having some technical issue, but I'm back now. Sorry.
That's okay.
So what I wanted to ask, Nicole, for people that are running the workshop, will they be building a custom application from the get-go, or do you have like a demo sample example that you'll walk them through?
So a little bit of both. So the way that our workshop works is we have kind of an intro section that talks just about like, what is a large language model and some of these terms that go along with using OpenAI. And then we also have a section kind of walking through different scenarios around prompt engineering, which is all about how to change your queries in order to optimize the results that you're returning. And then we do kind of have just a kind of 101 basic getting started, I would say like lab that's kind of like like I said, the basics, and that's just plugging that into a Power App and using OpenAI through that. And then we kind of have 3 more advanced scenarios, I would say, and that's going to be more complex application building.
Okay. That sounds fun. Have you run the workshop with customers already?
We have, so we've ran it a couple times already. I think we're pretty close to. We've done it with a total of 200 customers so far. So we run this as kind of private events for our customers currently. So we've run it in a one-to-many customers scenario where we have customers from multiple different companies coming in, and we've also had some customers who have so many people that are interested that we host it just privately for them. So we've
Okay.
had we have almost 2 of those every single week now.
Okay, that sounds like a lot of fun. And for those companies that might be a little smaller and don't have a Microsoft representative, can they run this workshop by themselves without any help from Microsoft?
Absolutely. So that's the way that we designed our repo, was to include all of the instructions and everything in there, including all of that learning content that I mentioned about just large language models and prompt engineering. All of that's included inside of our repo so that anybody can go and run through that and follow the steps and be able to deploy this on their own. We have all the code and everything in the repo. We even have like the ARM templates so that you can deploy all the resources into Azure. Just to get started on your own. So you certainly don't need to have a proctored workshop in order to do this. Everything is in the repo.
Okay. And as I think about building applications with OpenAI, the Azure OpenAI service in my mind is just a set of APIs that can give you incredibly smart answers to questions. But how do you think about an end-to-end application using OpenAI? What other parts come into play as you think about that?
Yeah, sure. So a very common scenario I would say that we see is that customers want a kind of a custom question answering chatbot that's specific to their data. Sometimes people don't want those answers that are pulled from the internet, for example, that you might ask into Chat GPT. They only want things for their specific data sets. So that's one of the scenarios that we go through, and that's layering Azure Cognitive Search. So we take our documents into there, we run it through Azure Form Recognizer, which is another cognitive service, in order to extract like the text and the tables from there and chunk it as well, and then feed that into cognitive search. And then cognitive search is what actually the OpenAI then is hitting in order to retrieve the answers. So that just ensures that we're not hitting anything from like the public internet or anything from that pre-trained model. We're just only getting our own specific answers that we have. So that's one of the scenarios that we walk through in our labs. And I would say that's probably the most common scenario that we do see.
Okay, so that's essentially building sort of a knowledge base or using your knowledge base to feed into cognitive search, and then you can plug ChatGPT or GPT-4 now into cognitive search, and then rather than hitting the internet, it just hits your own private knowledge base.
Yep, exactly. So then that takes out, a lot of times, people think that they need to jump right into fine tuning for their models, but that's A, expensive, and then B, you can only have one fine tuned model of that type per resource. So this allows then, just to kind of use the pre-trained models out of the box in order to be retrieving that there then.
Okay. And then in the work that you're doing with your customers, do you have customers that are already using this in production?
So I don't. We do have a couple customers in SDP who are moving into production. But I would say that majority of the customers I've been working with are working towards production currently
Mm-hmm.
still. But they're, we're kind of at those final milestone stages. So a lot of them kind of, we're a little bit later to get started. Since it did just GA, I think it was in January. Between a lot of like their own legal hoops and things that they had to work through in their own companies, a lot of them didn't even get started with it until late February, maybe. But they're progressing really quickly, I would say, in their POCs. Whereas a traditional machine learning project can often take several months. I definitely see a lot quicker development using OpenAI.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you said some people were slower to start, but this thing only really got started. Like for me personally, I think I started playing with ChatGPT for the first time maybe in November, December-ish of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And we're only March 2023, and we're having customers already building applications and going into production in March. It's incredible how fast this has gone. I've never seen this during my time in the industry, which is a little under 10 years now.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. This is definitely the quickest acceleration I've seen, especially like I said, I've done a lot of traditional machine learning projects, or what a lot of times people call classical machine learning in the past, and those a lot of times take up to 6 months to a year to
Yeah.
even consider going into production.
Yep. And then maybe as we round out, how would you say that OpenAI is different from the classical machine learning models, and where OpenAI really fits in, but where some customers might still need to use traditional machine learning to solve certain problems?
Yeah, sure. So definitely not every use case is solvable, I would say, by OpenAI. So the biggest difference is that with OpenAI, you're going to be leveraging a pre-trained model. So it's not just taking some, kind of base algorithm and then training it. This has already been pre-trained on trillions of words, kind of for you. So this works really well for, sort of natural language processing, as well as even some computer vision use cases and things. But there is definitely still scenarios where traditional machine learning might be the better route for that.
Okay. Yep. That makes sense. And specifically to the workshop, do you have any call outs to the audience or things you want them to do with the workshop?
Uh, I think the best thing to do is just kind of get started with it. And I think going through some of those scenarios, figuring out, I would definitely look through all of them first, kind of see which one might fit, your potential use cases or anything that you have first. Like I said, there is 3 of them. So one of them is around, connecting to a SQL database. So business users can put in, a query, and then that's converted into SQL language. And then, calls into that database to retrieve the response for the user. We have a batch scenario as well that's using Synapse, and it's around call transcripts. And then we have that custom Q&A one that I had talked about earlier. So I would definitely look through those architectures, see which ones kind of work best. We are kind of constantly enhancing it, I would say, especially at the rapid pace that new models and things have been coming out. It's still always being updated. So if there is maybe a different scenario or anything you'd like to see, feel free to comment on it, or you can open an issue on our GitHub, and we're monitoring that so we can respond from there.
Okay, that sounds good. So for people who want to get started, we'll put the link. We already put it in the YouTube live chat here, but we'll also put it in the episode description. And as Nicole said, go ahead, try it out. If you have any questions, I heard you can open GitHub issues, so you can get some support as well there.
Yep, definitely. I always am looking for those. So
cool. And with that, Nicole, I want to say thank you, first of all, for your work on the OpenAI workshop. Given that we've already run it with 200 customers, that's pretty amazing. So thank you for your work, and thank you for joining us at Unsung Heroes of the Cloud. And for those of you who watched until this point, we'll see you again in about 2 weeks. Thanks, everyone.
thanks.